The digital art era is here. AI and art creation tools empower anyone to make it. Blockchain technologies allow anyone to own it. VR, AR, and extended reality immerse us in it. Let's talk to artists and innovators behind the visual magic. I'm your host, Roger Dickerman. Welcome to the future of art.
Today we welcome Hafftka. While he likely needs no introduction for some, Hafftka is an artist with 5 decades of experience and works represented in a host of museums, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York Museum of Modern Art, and Carnegie Museum of Art. It's rare to find someone who matches such life experience with boundless energy and clear thought. Yet, that's Hafftka. I left this conversation inspired. The deep-rooted desire to create, the obstinance needed to navigate art, and the conviction in digital medium, in crypto art, in crypto ownership are a few memorable topics. Please enjoy. Let's get to it.
Hafftka, welcome to the future of art.
GM, thanks so much. Great to be here, Roger.
It's really great to be here with you. And when I think about the title of the show, The Future of Art, I see all that you've accomplished in art and the trajectory or the path that you followed and how you sort of seamlessly now come over to the crypto art world and are directly influencing that. And I couldn't think of anyone better to embody the name.
Well, thank you. That's a great compliment. I love the title. I love your show. And the future of art is what it's really all about. I think, not just for me, but for all artists, we all look towards the future. And even now, looking back, on the past, which has been long, it's still about the future. So the future of art is where it's at. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. Exactly. So my philosophy, before I ask you the grand question of what does art mean to you, I'll cue that up in your brain. We'll get back to that in a second. My philosophy on artists, I'm very honest. I don't have a traditional art background. I don't have a formal art education, but I've fallen in absolute love, and it's been my obsession for now many years. And my philosophy since day one has been artists are leading the tech. They're risk takers, the creative trailblazers, and it's over the course of time doing interviews with NFT origin stories and now the future of art. It's been an honor existing on the bleeding edge alongside people like yourself. Is that the way you look at it?
Yeah, I don't look at art in with this sense of professionalism. Of course, there is professionalism in anything that anyone does for a long period of time. But what you're developing is your unique and individual voice, your unique professionalism. So you don't approach, my feeling about art is it's really absolutely for everybody. It doesn't require training. And I think actually the most trained people that study art and are educated in art actually limit art the most because they're always, again, looking at the past, not the future. And so I think the most important thing about art for everyone, the artists included, the audience, is to keep an open mind and just go forward and try to expand it. Because art, for me, really actually has great utility. The utility is really about feeling yourself, understanding yourself. And the basic thing with that is we're very unknown to ourselves. It's a very simple thing. Here we are, who we are, but how do we know who we are? We have to explore, and that means going into the unknown. So I don't really think any training is required. So I think you're way ahead of a lot of people. A lot of people approach it with the idea that you need training, you need to know the history, you need to know actually theory, and all of those things are actually useless going forward.
It's an interesting perspective, and you put me at ease. You put me at ease.
Cool. Well, I'm self-trained, and actually, the longer I think about it and experience it, the more. First of all, I'm a complete professional, yet I'm self-trained. So the more I believe in that agenda, and actually, my art education came from just essentially curiosity. First of all, my mother as a child took me to museums, took me to concerts. So I was very, very immersed in seeing this really incredible phenomenon, which is human expression in a way that isn't tagged to any rules. So then naturally, wanting to become an artist, I created my own path. And I think that's just very important.
You talked about that self-exploratory aspect of art, learning about yourself. Can you give an anecdotal example of any time along your journey where it opened a new door for you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a painting that I painted. I don't remember the exact year. It was somewhere in the 90s. It's called Memory. And this painting, is fairly figurative and abstract at the same time. Like most of my work, it deals with abstract forms and figurative, with a figurative logic and figure and sort of hints towards figure in a very primitive way without actually attempting to be illustrational or realistic. And the painting was actually an image from a childhood nightmare. And the childhood nightmare also, this is very appropriate to Web3, came, I think, from a cartoon image, a cartoon, probably a very early Disney cartoon. I've never really tracked it down, but it was one of those cars that are on railroad tracks that you can pump. It's a self-pumping rail car, and it's not enclosed. And so as a child, I had this experience, which was really absolutely horrifying. It was a reoccurring nightmare of being on this device, pumping and going in at all speeds in all directions at once, kind of beyond what I even conceived of the speed of light. And that essentially I was in a state of total fear and that I would become obliterated. And I would wake up horrified in a cold sweat, and this happened all the time. And for whatever reason, there's a lot of consciousness in dreaming. I'm aware of the experience, and I'm aware of the fear, and I'm aware of what I'm going through, yet I'm trapped. And so at some point as a child, I just realized that, you know what, I'm not gonna just put up with this. I'm not gonna put up with fear. I'm not gonna put up with this kind of terrifying, horrifying experience. And I decided, rather than wake up, I'm gonna go with obliteration. I'm gonna just fucking go and just go forward into this intensely horrifying experience and just see where it goes. And what happened was, instead of waking up, instead of incredible fear and fright, I had total, absolute relaxation and joy, a kind of nirvana experience, an incredible experience. And so the painting is about this nightmare. And as I was painting this painting, I realized this was my absolute first lesson in an artistic experience. This is what painting is really all about. Getting to the point where it's so completely treacherous and confusing and unknown and not knowing where to go, which is a terrifying experience, and just going forward and making that leap into the unknown. And with that leap into the unknown, you really achieve a kind of nirvana and a kind of new knowledge. So for me, that was a turning point in understanding my own creation, which came many years, after I started creating.
Now, were these dreams lucid? So you were awake in a sense within the dream?
Yeah, I always have lucid dreams. So yeah, it's part of my, just part of everything. I still experience that to this day, all the time.
Very interesting. I've only had a few handfuls of them, but they've been some of the most formative dream experiences. So I can imagine being regularly attuned to a lucid dream can be probably pretty thrilling at times.
Yeah, it is. My whole practice as an artist is really about being in touch with my unconscious and being in touch with this flow that is happening in me at all times. I always feel like I'm always painting, I'm always creating, I'm always playing the music of the universe and painting the vibration of the universe. I know that's kind of like hallucinogenic hippie thoughts, but really it's been my experience, in a very practical way, that there's a flow. And like Heraclitus says, you can't put your foot in the same river twice or again. The flow is always there. And at any point, if you enter into it, you can choose to go with the flow and create.
How do you think of that flow on the other side? For example, one of the many museums where your work exists, or in a collector's hands now in the Web3 community, or a traditional art collector that holds a canvas of yours. How do you think about the flow changing hands, so to speak?
You know, I'm totally in favor of that, because I really feel the art has utility beyond the artist. I mean, if it were only for me, it would be a very private thing. I really do believe it's for other people, and people gain from the experience of living with it, of looking at it over time, because, you know, it's not something that you look at once, absorb, and then you walk away from. I think there's a relationship that the collector has with a work of art that becomes profounder every day and every minute. So I'm very much grateful for all the people that have collected my work. I'm grateful to museums too, although I think museums, you know, as wonderful as they are, and as wonderful it is to desire to be in a museum, the fact is that most work in museums remain in storage. But even those works that are hung up, people have a very unintimate, quick moment with them. There's crowds of people around. It's hard to really experience something in a museum or a gallery in a profound way. And that segues into my thoughts about Web3, because Web3 allows us all, whether we own the work or not, to actually experience it very privately and very, very intimately. So while, you know, all these conventional forms, you know, of looking at art, you know, have served us in the past, technology has really provided us with something, you know, even greater than the so-called the Louvre. I mean, think about VR. We're going to have the Louvre in our, you know, in our heads, in our environment. You know, this is a real great revolution for artists. So I'm very, very excited about the future.
That's interesting. You're speaking my language. I love the future of AR, VR, and I mean, it hasn't even been a fraction of the way unlocked where I think we'll ultimately
yeah, we're
be
just at the very beginning. We're early in general. All of this digital art, we're at the very beginning. It's hard to predict how profoundly this is all going to unfold. You know, there's, you know, technology increases exponentially. And, you know, after, you know, hundreds of years of oil painting technology, of gouache and watercolor, finally we're leaping into, you know, we're not losing anything. We're not losing oil paint. We're not losing watercolor. But digital technology is phenomenal. And it allows us really to, you know, make, you know, incredible leaps. You know, this piece that you brought me on the show to talk about, that I'm releasing soon, you know, Current Affairs, is a perfect example of that. I'm taking works of mine from various periods of my career, digitizing them and combining them and mixing them with music and creating a flow, kind of animation mural that is not possible without digital technology. So, you know, any one of the components of these works would be very, very different and inaccessible to most people, because it's often one of the paintings is in a museum collection in New York City. I don't know if it's up right now, but, you know, putting this together is something that I can do, and then it happens in Web3 and they're together forever. This is a phenomenal, you know, the future of art is phenomenal, exciting, and it's always going to be an improvement.
When it comes to digital, did it click right away? Did you have an aha moment? Did it slowly dawn on you? Well, what was the formative turning point there?
You know, that's a great question. It's actually, I've got a very funny answer. The aha moment was, you know, in the 90s, my children were little. You know, everyone used to say, well, you got to get a computer. These laptops are you know, not laptops, desktops, PCs and Macs are the way of the future. If your kids will just die if you don't get them a computer. And I had no idea what a computer was. I mean, to me, a computer was something that NASA used to go to the moon. And that's it. And it was huge. It was a mainframe. It was the size of my, you know, loft that I'm in right now. You know, so it was an incomprehensible thing. And it had to do with those punch cards, you know, and what the hell is a punch card? And what could that possibly mean? So I went out, you know, just like any good parent that could afford to do it, I went to Staples and I bought the only computer that came in one box because I had no idea. I had no idea what's a monitor, what's the computer, what's a, you know, what's the keyboard for, you know, what kind of typewriter is this, what's a mouse, but it was an Apple Performa. It came in one box. And so I brought it home. And the defining moment was when my 7-year-old son, one of my children, looked at this box that I brought in and his eyes lit up. And somehow I knew he knew, and that was the future. And I just it just clicked. And this was before hooking it up to the internet. So there weren't very many options. You know, it's like I didn't know what to do with it. So art was the natural thing for me to right away find out, is it possible? And the moment I saw, you know, the potential of digital art, and, you know, my pinned tweet on Twitter, on X, talks about my earliest digital art. And you could see it was just a complete natural, there's no real difference between taking a pen and paper and then doing it digitally. Of course, there was no pen. I used the mouse. You know, it's all very, very primitive. But the basic concept of drawing is no different than if you're a caveman and drawing on the walls of a cave. So it was really an extraordinary moment for me. And, you know, I somehow just realized its potential right away.
So that's the medium and tooling. And by the way, I appreciate your mindset. It's phenomenally open-minded, which it's inclusive. I always find it fascinating. Definitions of art vary, right? There's a very exclusive definition of art and a very inclusive definition of art. And who am I to say what's right or wrong? I tend to favor the inclusive, and I appreciate, again, how open-minded you are.
I think if you look at art history, and especially contemporary art, it weighs heavily on the inclusive. You know, very often there's the exclusive, and that's mostly the result of market pressures, both on the market, both on the artist, you know, and artists just give in to being very limited. And, you know, sometimes artists just don't have much to say or much to express, and they're not that expressive. So it becomes a kind of exclusive one-form thing. But, you know, there's good and bad. It doesn't really matter. There's a lot more inclusive art out there. We're witnessing it today in the absolute revolution that Web3 is. We're getting beyond the gatekeepers to see everything, good and bad, and that's an exciting phenomenon. That's really fantastic. And it's fantastic for me as an artist to see so much interesting work. I didn't get to see that wandering around the galleries of Soho and 57th Street and Madison Avenue. You know, with all that walking and all those galleries, it was a very limited view of human artistic potential.
Let's take it a step further. So that's digital art as a medium. And again, exploring the computer, bringing it home in one box, beginning drawing on it. Now take it all the way into Web3. So Web3 introduces this concept of digital ownership, right? The ability for someone on the other side of it to own that token or own that digital canvas. Did that click for you right away, or did that take a little bit of time?
No, that clicked right away. I actually tried in the 90s to sell prints of you know, digital paintings. You know, it was very natural to me. I made etchings all the time. I still have an etching press. It's a very primitive medium, one that I really, really love. And essentially it's a reproductive medium, although I would make etchings that were monoprints that were unique. And actually some of my very first NFTs were based on those etchings, those very early etchings of mine. I decided I would take early works of mine and animate them and change them into like digital works. And I'm very fond of those. Those are called incisions. And they're in my vault. People can see them on OpenSea. And they're the exact examples of those, the original examples, not exact, the original examples of those are in the Museum of Modern Art and in the collection, and variations of those are in the collection of the British Museum. And some are held by private collectors. So it was very natural to me to reproduce a digital image, and ownership was very, just like anything else. I mean, artists make things and, we hope that people will enjoy them. So before the blockchain, that failed completely. I mean, I showed many art dealers digital images and they just thought I was crazy. And no one was interested. And I've heard stories of this, other people doing it before. Xcopy was selling GIFs, and no one wanted them for $1. I've heard all these stories, and it's true. No one was interested in digital art, but it's just a medium. So I didn't see why there's any difference. What's the difference between an etching and something printed from a digital file? So to my mind, there really isn't any difference. So when I first heard about the blockchain, it just immediately made sense to me. First of all, there's verification. The second thing is it involves crypto. And that right away clicked with me, because crypto, one of the big problems you deal with as an artist is shipping, shipping, transfer of ownership. I paint these huge paintings. Some of them are 20 feet, in this new piece of mine that's coming out, Current Affairs. Some of those paintings are 20 feet wide. Those are a huge pain in the ass to ship anywhere. Even shipping them to Manhattan is a big problem. They have to be crated, they're flown. It's just a nightmare. And international payments, they're always cumbersome, filling out customs papers. All those things are just a nightmare. So all the nightmares of physical art, immediately when I heard crypto's involved, I realized, hey, this is simple. This is just a wire transfer that I own. I mean, it's not a wire transfer that goes through a bank. It's a wire transfer, which is just simply as simple as messaging. It's actually even simpler. So, right away, the whole idea just seemed incredibly cool to me, and I jumped right in, and, the moment I jumped in, I just started seeing all this cool, crazy art, stuff that I never see in galleries, and the reason for that is galleries have an overhead. And, whoever owns a gallery is just thinking, oh, we can only show what we can sell immediately. And then becomes, this other layer of problems. If the collectors come into the gallery and I show them a variety of stuff, it'll confuse the fuck out of them. So I've got to show one thing and make 20, get the artist to make 20 variations. So it becomes incredibly boring. So the moment I popped into Web3, all those bets were off. It was just incredible to start seeing variety and seeing a lot of cool art that inspired me. It inspired me to create stuff. It still does.
Did it feel when you jumped onto the blockchain and jumped into Web3 officially, minted and sold the token, did it feel like it all came to fruition? All those years of thoughts and talking to, let's say, gallerists about digital prints and those things, and having nothing be interesting to them. And now here you are effectuating an actual, as you put it, wire transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, in the brick and mortar art world, it was very, very difficult for me. It wasn't a natural process. I struggled a lot, and I succeeded just because of sheer obstinance and just pushing myself everywhere and doing it on my own. So the moment I hit the blockchain, I realized, wow, this is total independence. This is what I've been looking for my entire life. This is incredible, because not only, do I have the potential for managing myself, putting myself out there, but it's immediate and it's free. And I'll just give you a simple example of that. When I worked exclusively in the brick and mortar art world, for example, I'd have a painting, then I'd have to take a photograph of the painting. Now, the photo wasn't digital. The photo was on film, and a 35 millimeter slide sucked. So you'd have to take a 4x5. And of course, there's glare. So you'd have to polarize. So the whole thing was very, very cumbersome. You'd polarize the lens, you'd polarize the lights, you'd take the 4x5, then you get in your car, you drive over to a lab that's, a few miles away in the middle of the night. And then, 2 hours later, they develop this sheet of Ektachrome. You've got like one sheet. That's it, one sheet. Or if you shot 5, you've got 5 copies. So then you drive in your car. You go up to 34th Street to the post office. You put the thing in an envelope. You write a letter. You send it off to Europe. It takes a week. It takes a fucking week to get to Europe for one person to see this one lousy transparency that you've got to hold up to the light. No one's got a light box. No one knows what the hell this is. Nowadays, everything is utterly transformed. It's incredibly simple. You use your phone, you take a photo, you can transfer it to 1 million people all over the world. The whole world is there. What Web3 does is it empowers the artist to show their work to anybody and everybody all over the world. It opens up doors. It makes every gatekeeping problem actually irrelevant. Whether there are gatekeepers or not, even if there are gatekeepers here, who cares? You still have complete freedom to go wherever you want.
You mentioned struggles and you mentioned succeeding because of pure obstinance.
Right.
Can you dig into that a little bit? I find in the current state of Web3, within the sort of attention economy that we all are wrapped up within,
right,
obstinance is an amazing quality. It is
right.
almost a necessary quality at various junctures. But can you go back in time and talk about a few instances of that and how it pushed you through obstacles?
Yeah, I don't know if instances are relevant. I mean, instances were just trying to show my work to so many different dealers, so many different gatekeepers, getting rejected all the time, or actually even getting accepted and then showing the work, and a sale doesn't happen and then you're rejected again, or rejected after a few minutes of someone believing in you. But the thing is about obstinance is that if you're going to choose to be an artist, you have to be obstinate because you're doing something that's completely your own. And naturally, the world isn't going to recognize it. And that's fine. That's how you start at the gate. You might feel that this is relevant. You might feel this is useful, but sometimes things take time. So you have to have staying power. And it doesn't matter. That's the same in Web3 and the same in the brick and mortar art world. You really have to believe in yourself and keep plugging away. As I say, the world is really big. So, there's millions and millions of people. So you might show it to 1 million people, but the 1,000,001 person might really resonate with it. If that person resonates with it, that opens up the door to another community. So we're all connected, and it's very important, to just keep plugging away. When I say, I look back and I see how hard it was, it's hard for everybody. I'm not saying it was uniquely hard for me, and it's hard for people that you think have it really easy. Nobody really has it easy. There's a struggle, in everything. If you look at and I know some of the most famous artists in the world, and they work at it. They work at it all the time. And it's just like anything else. If there's one advice I would give to all artists is just keep working, work all the time, work at creating and work at showing your art to other people. Just keep going.
Is your self-belief inherent or learned? Was it emboldened over the course of time and experience, or did you have it from day one?
That's an awesome question. You have to nurture that in yourself because we are all full of doubt. And actually, creating art is about doubt. So, you really, Keats, the poet, really talked about this concept of negative capability, about being comfortable with total uncertainty. So, of course, that includes your own mission. That includes who you are. That includes what you're doing. I think this painting is important, but really, how important is it? You could easily devolve into complete criticism and saying, what the hell is that? I hate it myself. But you really can't let yourself go once the work is finished, once you're not in a state of creation, once destruction becomes irrelevant. You actually have to learn to nurture yourself and support yourself. And, I've been very, very lucky in life. My wife, supports me, loves me. Having love in life, has taught me, it's a really profound thing that's taught me. First of all, we all need love. We need to love ourselves. But when someone else loves you, it gives you, and sometimes that we get that from our mother, and then it lasts our whole lifetime. I think you have to also reparent yourself. And sometimes if you have a partner that just loves you, it makes it easier to love yourself. These are all very profound and difficult things for everybody. And if I can encourage anybody, everybody to do that, is to really sort of believe in themselves, no matter what the struggle is. Even if the struggle, I talk about the struggle of making art and showing art, but the struggle could be with quitting cigarettes. I quit cigarettes 20 years ago. It was a profoundly difficult struggle, but you can only do it if you love yourself enough to do it. So, every struggle, whether it's with a substance, whether it's painting a painting, whether it's a relationship, requires self-love, and that has to be nurtured. I don't think any of us are born with this complete enlightened perfection. There's always doubt, and we're challenged. We're challenged in life as we go on with failure. Failure is depressing. Every time I fail, I'm not immune to failure. I fail and I feel miserable, but I completely try to re-energize myself and go forward.
When you quit cigarettes 20 years ago, do you recall the art that you made around that experience?
No, I didn't. I separated that from art. It was very, very difficult because I was used to, I was addicted. So I didn't really make art about that, but I mentally constantly worked at quitting. I constantly used a form of self-hypnosis, which is what we're talking about too. Nurturing yourself is also a form of self-hypnosis. Finding the way to believe in yourself is kind of similar. That's why I brought it up. You have to reinforce an instinct. We have all sorts of instincts to do good, instincts to do bad. Whatever we choose to reinforce, we're going to go in that direction. And if we make the wrong choices, we fuck up.
Well said. I can already tell this is one of those interviews where I'll have a lot to think about in the aftermath, but those are the best ones. So I'm appreciative. So
cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Those types of life experiences, why I brought it up. So not to say that necessarily the art you created around that period of time is literally reflective of quitting cigarettes or any other hardship or the opposite or a bright spot in life. Do you have another instance, let's say, where you experienced something profound in life and created an artwork in that frame of time that is memorable?
All the work that went into this this current work that I'm putting out, called Current Affairs, really comes from profound existential self-reflection, both as a child, but as a grown-up, as a parent, as an experienced artist, as someone who wishes that culture can really change the world for the better. So this flow of self-realizations, of thinking about the world, is always in my work. And it doesn't need to be specific. It's part of what being an artist is about for me. I think very much, because my parents were survivors of the Holocaust and were immigrants and had nothing and had such tragic lives, tragic experience as children and as young people, witnessing their entire families being murdered. I think because of such a profound existential condition that my parents suffered from, and that brought to me and said, well, this is the world we brought you into. I was always faced with thinking of the world in its most serious terms and trying to understand, how do we live in a world that is also profoundly difficult? Even if we're in the moment where we're doing okay, we know at any given moment it's profoundly difficult for other people suffering in the world. And I kind of think we're all connected. So other people's suffering is our own suffering. We're distracted sometimes, so we can't really be empathetic in the moment to everything. It would really drown out our own consciousness. It would be impossible. But that's what art is for. Art is for connecting and covering a kind of overview of compassion in the whole world. And I think that's, the reason I became an artist, the focus that I have given it. Of course, there are other focuses, now as an artist, and I'm very curious about other people's art, and I look at art and I think about subject matter in art as it relates to many different people. We all come into the world with different experiences, and so we all have different overviews, and some really, and many don't have the viewpoint that I have and approach it differently. That also is part of culture. It fascinates me, and I'm hoping that it all interacts together for the good.
Take us into your creative process a bit. You're coming to us from your loft, from your, as we called it off recording, your bat cave, right?
Right.
Take us into your bat cave and how you go through the day to day.
Well, the way I create is, since I've been doing it so long, I can describe it. But it doesn't mean that it's understandable. It's pretty simplistic. I basically improvise on my own internal chaos and feelings. And so essentially I create a space, a safe space, which is what the studio is. It's space where I can look at a blank canvas, just, the legendary blank canvas, and somehow feel a point of start and do something to it and respond to that and create from that a whole array of feelings that I'm having. And as that happens, whether this blank canvas happens on a physical canvas or whether it happens on my iPad, or whether it happens on my computer, makes no difference. It's the void of that blank that triggers me to fill it. And in the process of filling it, I am trying to fill it with meaning. It could be filled with anything. It could just be filled with red. It could just be filled with yellow. It could just be a blank canvas. So all those potentials exist in art. So, and for those that fill it with just yellow or fill it with just blue like Yves Klein or white like Robert Ryman, they were filling it with meaning. I understand that. I don't look down on that. That was their attempt to reach the void and reach meaning at the same time. So for me, every time you look at a painting of mine, what you're seeing is the meaning, the intent that I tried to give it, that came out of me unconsciously, and hopefully that resonates with other people. So the process can only be described externally, because what's happening is really internal, and it's still mysterious to me. And I've brought up these artists that painted blank canvases, like Yves Klein or Robert Ryman. And I want to point out that it is also mysterious, and I don't denigrate that. And in fact, I'm kind of fascinated, that we can find meaning just about everywhere and in anything in the world. It's beautiful.
How do you know your process is finished?
It's in the individual canvas. Again, that's a great question. It's an incredible feeling. It's a certainty. That doesn't mean that I'm right, but I feel it. And then sometimes, even with the certainty of that feeling, time goes on and there's doubt. And then you have to re-enter it. And, there's many paintings that I've worked on for many years because although there's great certainty to it, when I felt it's over, then there's a certain kind of doubt that comes into play later. And you enter back into it and the flow is still there. It's still alive. And you see that, it took time to make it real. I recently had, with the first painting of this year, it was a painting I worked on for 5 years, I think. It was a painting of my mother, and this is a very important painting personally to me. It's really just personal. It's my mother. She died when I was 19, so I have this gaping hole of a relationship in my life. And also I'm as a painter, I paint portraits of my friends, and I paint portraits, self-portraits. Portraiture's been part of my experience. I wasn't able to paint her. So painting her was about bringing her to life for me, because there is a real magic in painting. It's not only do you know how it's finished, when it's alive. The goal in making a painting is that it breathes life. It's really vibrant and has a real life to it. And so, I physically feel that and experience it when I'm painting. A painting is just a chain of disasters. It's a miserable mess. And then all of a sudden the thing has a life of its own and it's beyond you. It's really talking to you. So, this painting, it took me years. And then finally, for that, interaction, my mother was alive, which, has multiple meanings to me. I felt like I actually connected with her despite, life and death through this painting. Art is very powerful. It connects with the living and the dead, and the living and the dead are always connected, like roots of a tree. We're all connected, and, there is no time past and time present. It's quite profound how the world is. And, that's the magic of art, is it deals in the profundities, not in the limited view that we often have in life.
I enjoy the thought of bringing them to life, of giving them extended life. Is there an example? I mean, you have decades of personal art experience and putting breathing life into artworks for multiple decades. Is there an example or examples of something that surprised you months or years later, where an artwork that maybe you had created and either someone collected it or it got placed somewhere and it came back to tap you on the shoulder years later and you realize that it is very much alive out there in the world?
Well, I look at my work, whether I own it or not. Often I look at a lot of old work all the time, and I live with some paintings of mine that I've kept from years and years ago. And I've always painted way more than I could possibly sell. I'm very prolific. I work all the time, and I'm lucky that I'm strong enough to always do that. So that's been phenomenal. So I always look at older work, and that's the measure of it. Is it still alive? So, I haven't failed as far as I can see in that respect. I still enjoy a lot of my older work, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to see how much I've changed, and yet see that there's consistency throughout all these years, and there's great strength to what I've done in the past. So I kind of live with it all the time. And in addition to that, I think it's one continuous flow. And a lot of the ideas that are in my paintings have informed my paintings currently, and it's part of it's a constant. You know, we're very unique creatures, human beings, and throughout our entire lifespans, we're like computers that have certain limitations and certain ties with in infinite operations, and we as long as we're alive and inhabiting this processor, this physical machine that allows us to put the stuff out there through our physicality, you know, the internal side of that is that there is a great consistency from beginning to end to the flow that we are. And perhaps even when we end, that soul, spirit enters the communal whole and has this contribution to the whole organism that the universe is.
Let's root ourselves in present day, and you're on the doorstep of breathing life into another release. And I want to talk about that, and then also what lies ahead for you even further beyond in the quote unquote future of your art.
Sure. Well, I don't know if I'm breathing life into another release, because a release is not exactly the same as creating a work of art. So I've breathed life into this piece, and the release in a sense is superficial, although it's very, very important because it's the art going out there, and I'm very excited for it. So let's fucking go.
How do you think through the various and this could be before Web3 or within Web3, the brands that you associate yourself with, that whether it's a platform, yeah, I mean, go anywhere you'd like with that question, but how do you think that process through?
Well, I think Web3, the brands, and now we're talking about platforms, you know, these are all tools for the artist. And, you know, artists need to use tools, and the success of any one of those brands have to do with the building out of those brands. And I'm going to give you two examples. Like this release is on Decca. And, you know, I met the founder of Decca, Han, who's a really extraordinary guy. You know, we met because he was curious about what I was doing. And, you know, he's a very open-minded guy. And I was curious about what he's doing. And, you know, so he came to me with this idea after we met and we got along and we like each other. We had dinner, and, you know, he talked to me about this idea of what Decca's doing. First of all, we were in agreement that, you know, one of the things that needs to be supported by the platforms is, you know, how do we get back to having royalties for artists? Because, you know, I think royalties are a great idea. He totally agreed with me. So Decca is going to support royalties. But more important, one of the things he told me, which was really, really extraordinary, is that I could do a release on Decca with a sovereign contract, that it would be my contract completely. And to make this really engaging and more interesting, I can invite friends and artists to create along with me and to magnify through interpretation and excitement the work that I'm doing. And that was a mind-blowing idea. So here's an example. You're asking me about Web3. Here's an example. You know, we all talk about artists have to build. Yes, artists have to build. We do build. So what do brands and what do platforms have to do? Well, they have to build also, and they are building. So here's an example of Decca building. So I'm going to plug my project and go on to another brand before we finish this subject. So I invited some really cool artists that I admire to make posters. And again, let's talk about the brand building. So Decca created this concept of posters which would be releases of artists in relation to a project that they're involved with, that they either through friendship or liking the art or whatever. In my case, it's both. These artists are my friends, and I admire their art and they like my art. So they could release it on a separate contract. So it wouldn't be a profound thought about how they release it, how it affects their floor. They could release something very spontaneously, work outside of the mechanics of their ecosystem, and just create. So again, here I want to applaud Decca and the whole team, not just Han. There is a team. They came up with a way to build for artists. This is very, very important for artists, that the platforms do things for them. And I don't want to say that selfishly, because we work together. It's a symbiotic relationship. The platforms have to succeed for the artists to succeed. If the artists want to succeed, we want the platforms to succeed. We want to figure out a way that our work exists forever out there for people to experience as art, to also experience in a way that they can be practical with it, in terms of, if they own it and then they don't relate to it, or they for whatever reason want to sell it, there's a secondary market that's vibrant and effective and works. So there's all of those things. So I want to mention right away, before I go on to the next building brand, which I'm very fond of, the artists that are working with me, I really, really love, and they're really great artists. And I mean that. I'm not just saying that. So Diane Lindo, who I admire, and her work I've bought, her work just blows my mind. I have to say, when I see her work, I see myself, I see me and Yanat, I see, a lot of cool things, having the perspective of being older and she's younger. I look at her work and, I see myself. I think it's great. Doc T, who I admire and uses AI in such cool, different ways, is really fascinating. And one of the things, I'll say about Doc is, I'm a member of the Tungsten DAO. It's a really cool group of artists and collectors. We get together and we joke around mostly. That's basically all we do. But joking around is really cool. And we GM each other. It's really a great group. And so, when I went into the Tungsten DAO, I made a piece for the treasury of the DAO, and then the Tungsten DAO gives me a piece, and they showed me some works of art to choose from without knowing who the artist is. It was completely blind. And, I was very, very drawn to a work, and I said, that's it, I want that one. And it turned out to be Doc T. So, I love his work. And blindly was attracted to it. And that was, or after, not knowing him in any way. So, it's set up really cool in this ecosystem. Another artist is Dolce Pagana, who is an amazing artist. I love her work. It relates to me, and I've looked at her work, and she's so incredibly skilled. I admire her. She's very cool. We've never met in real life, but I've always related to her. And actually, my first instance of contact with her was asking her about some technological thing about a drawing tablet, and she was just totally open and started talking to me about technique. She's a phenomenal person. She's very exciting. Her art's very exciting. I'm very grateful she's part of it. And the next artist that I want to mention is Lispri, who's very cool. The guy's amazing. He's also in the Tungsten DAO, but, not only do I collect his work, but it's just beautiful work. And we're both involved in the whole Pepe thing. And I admire his Pepes. They're just really phenomenal. And we chat often. I love the guy. He's close to me as a brother. He's a wonderful guy. So I'm excited to see what he does. The next artist, Gavin Mueller, is a young artist. When I first saw his work, and I first saw it, actually, I think it was Kazamo that collected it, and I saw it and I thought, wow, that looks like me back in the day. It just blew me away. I was very attracted to his work, and I got some pieces of his, and I'm very fond of him, even though we haven't met either. We haven't even chatted, but through the work, we admire each other, we like each other, and I really think his work expresses a lot. Next artist that I want to talk about is King Xerox. King Xerox actually is a very big artist in the ecosystem, yet when I first approached him, looking at his work, he just accepted me instantly, we started talking about art and family and life, and I just love his work. It really just blew me away seeing it. Talk to me all the potential for using digital tools, and which he's a real true master of. Matt Scoble I met in New York City. We got along in New York City, NFT New York City. He came over to my gallery. We connected right away, and we got along, and we really, shared a lot of commonality about the process of making art. And I was very excited that he said yes because his work is very, very different than mine, to coming on board to doing this. We're very fond of each other, and we're both in the memes, which is the next platform that I'm going to talk about building. Skype is another artist that's also in the Tungsten DAO. He's really cool, and he does something very, very different from me. Uses typography a lot and a cutout method, and he just blows my mind. And I'm very excited to see what he's coming up with. And again, it's very different than me. And finally, the last artist in the group is an artist that I don't remember actually how we met. He's also an artist that was totally unknown, and Kaz really liked his work. At the same time, I don't remember if I saw him first on Kaz or if I saw him first and then Kaz saw him. I don't really remember, but we both like his work, and we started chatting. And he has a very, very unique vision, a very, very unique way of using pixel art. It just blew my mind, and I bought some pieces of his, and I liked it. So those are the artists that are involved in this piece. I'm very proud of that. I'm very excited for them all to come on board and see their work. And to me, the whole process of sharing with other artists and having this dialogue is just mind-blowing. This would not happen in the brick and mortar art world because it's insanely competitive. There's no room for love, and that state of mind is actually encouraged by dealers. It's really a kind of dog-eat-dog, horrible, the traditional brick and mortar art world. So this kind of possibility in Web3 that came about because a platform decided to make this functionality possible for artists is just phenomenal, mind-blowing. It's a community, it's community building, and it's fantastic.
Who was the last artist on the list? The pixel artist?
The last artist is XKiss.
Okay, got it.
Check out his works, phenomenal.
Amazing.
So you can find it, XKiss on X or in my vault. So the next thing, next platform I want to talk about is I'll talk about one other after this because I had recently a great experience, but is the memes by Punk 6529. That's incredible community that works with something that's so naturally part of this ecosystem, which is memes, just like the Notables, which is also an incredible community that I'm part of. There's more that I can talk about in this hour, but at any rate, one of the things that blows me away is how 6529, Punk and his team, because again, it's a team thing, how they're building utility for the artists. This is really incredible. It's not just, oh, we're giving you a piece, we'll give you a little bit of publicity and then just go fuck yourself. And they're actually building a way for artists to have a community to make other pieces through the meme lab, to be connected with other collectors, the collectors that have collected all the meme pieces. You're part of a community. It's mind-blowing. So it's not like a gallery. It's like, a community, not a gallery, mega steroid, pumped up community that artists can use. So when I talk about you have to be aggressive as an artist, you have to believe in yourself, you have to build, well, it's great. We've got partners. 6529 is building something incredible. Decca's building something incredible. Notables is building something incredible. Vince Van Doe and his team have done marvelous job with on Bitcoin also. with Counterparty, with the notables, you know, and all the jokes in Tungsten Dow, you know, and all the jokes about the tungsten cube, all this is part of building. And the next thing, last about platforms, is I recently sold a piece at the Miami Art Fair, which was through Maker's Place. This was mind-blowing. And by the way, I don't want to ignore other platforms. Like Foundation is phenomenal and they're building all the time. The thing they're doing with Worlds is really, really great. I just haven't gotten yet to use it. So I don't know, and I'm fond of Super Rare. I'm fond of being on Super Rare. But so Maker's Place got together with Transient Labs to not only auction and connect a physical and an NFT at the Miami Art Fair, which again, like Web3, my piece sold, it sold, and the NFT sold, and it sold to somebody in Lagos, Nigeria. This is, you know, this would be such a pain in the ass in a New York gallery, a Brooklyn gallery, and I know I even have a gallery. You know, you shudder if somebody said, "Oh, ship this painting to Lagos." I immediately call you not. You know, I need help. You know, I don't even know how to do the shipping. I know Yanat does, and we've done that, but it's a pain in the ass. All of that. It's so amazing that these platforms build and create functionality, because the most important thing to me as an artist is to have the time and space mentally to just focus on art. And I can tell you, as a 70-year-old, time is limited. You know, time in life is limited. I want to use the time to create. And so all these partners in Web3, like the memes, like Deca, like Foundation, like Maker's Place, like Super Rare, they're helping artists get the work out there. I appreciate it. It's phenomenal.
That was a fun exhibition at the Sagamore. I had a chance to walk through that several times.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. I didn't go there. I hate traveling. I didn't go there. I'm lucky there is NFT New York.
Yes, you know? You're in a good city to base yourself. If you don't like travel, New York's
that's why I stayed in New York. Absolutely.
Makes all the sense in the world. Yeah. So as we get close to end here, I mean, I want to leave you with a few questions. Let's cast our eyes forward. Okay. So you have this wonderful release coming up on Deca. The creation piece of that is done. You breathe life into it. What's next for you? You've mentioned you want to prioritize creation. You want to create as much as possible. But how would you frame that? What is next over the coming years?
You know, next is, and if I'm fortunate enough to have time and life, next is creation. It's actually, I so much believe in creation. That's all I want to do. So, you know, I prioritize my time to just create art, whether it's in the physical form, the digital form, the musical form, create and put it all together and just constantly create. So that's what's next. That and enjoying life. I really enjoy life to the max. And let's just fucking go.
Here's to creation. Let's just fucking go. Hafftka, who should be on the show? Who should be a guest on The Future of Art?
You know, all of those artists that are doing posters with me would be phenomenal guests. They really all would be. You know, that would be my, you know, my suggestion. You know, I think actually, though, this last question that brought up platforms, I think that's a very important subject. You know, I would invite, you know, I don't know whether you should do like Han alone, because that would be great. I think it would be great to do Han. I think Rob at Foundation would be phenomenal too, you know, so I think you could bring people on from Maker's Place. But what I'm suggesting is a round table. Why don't you get all those guys on? Let's get Punk on. Let's get, you know, Han together. Let's get everybody on, not only to present where they're going, because we're on the verge of a new age already in crypto art. Let's get, you know, I don't know if Kaz will do it. Let's get Kaz on. Let's get these folks that are so important in building for artists. You know, Kaz, by the way, is another one who's building for artists. He's not just simply a collector who's buying art and creating a collection for his own benefit. And also, I can tell you as an older person, as you get older, I think he's much younger than me. I don't know for a fact. I think he is much younger than me. As you get older, you realize everything you're building and everything you're doing is for the next generation anyway. And it's for the future. So I would say if you could set up a show where you get all these guys together to really discuss what they're doing and where they're going and how they cooperate, how they interact, because the beauty of this ecosystem is really that we can all work together and all build together. There isn't really a point to competition in art, because the goal in art is really enlightenment. Competition is really a negative phenomenon. I know, you know, artists are naturally competitive because, you know, you make this thing and you think, well, this is the vision of visions. This is the way the world is. But the cure for that is if there was only one work of art in the world and it was just like yours and everybody was repeating it, it would be really fucking boring. You know, the real diversity here is what makes everything exciting. So if you're open to my suggestion, let's get all these guys on, guys and girls, let's get them together. Let's talk about building, and let's build for artists and have artists help these communities thrive. We're all in this together. Let's fucking go.
I think forums can be quite powerful. And I think getting those kinds of minds together for a very impactful discussion makes all the sense in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd really love to hear that. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be fun too.
Where can people find you?
On Twitter as at Hafftka, Hafftka. That's the main place. You know, in social, I'm also on Instagram. I post images on Instagram, but I think Instagram's kind of a failed social platform. You know, it's not really serving artists. It's not really serving collectors really well. It's kind of like, you know, I keep posting there too, and I post music there too. But, you know, X is pretty much, crypto X is thriving. I think it's really, you know, it's our clubhouse. It's where we are. And whatever complaints we have about the clubhouse, you know, the hell with it. Let's improve it and use it.
Well said. Well said. And I think it's a very accurate representation of where we stand today. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's one I'm going to be thinking back on, and it's one I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me. You know, I define myself as I understand where I'm going, and you've asked me great questions about where we're all going. So I really appreciate you, Roger. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening and for being part of the future of art. If you liked the episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite platform, and onward to the many conversations that await us. The Future of Art is produced by Artifex. Artifex, Artifex, was created to honor today's top digital fine artists in 3 dimensions. Each artist's one-of-one work of art becomes a collectible 3D sculpture and centerpiece of an immersive world built in Unreal Engine, the creation tool of Epic Games. Search Artifex Viewer on Apple and download our brand new free app to experience the sculptures in augmented reality. And visit artifex.art/unreal to literally step inside the art on your browser.